I recognize the member from Timiskaming Cochrane to move the motion.
I move that in the opinion of this House, the Government of Ontario should protect Canada's drivers, east-west trade, national resilience, supply chain reliability, and mining projects by working with the Government of Canada to declare the expansion and modernization of Highways 11 and 17 a project of national significance.
Mr. Vantoff has moved private member's notice of motion number 63. Pursuant to Standing Order 100, the member has 12 minutes for their presentation.
Again, thank you, Speaker. I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anyone in this House that Highway 1117 are in a crisis. Northern members have brought it up so many times. Had to say condolences so many times. But where the impetus of this motion came from, if you will recall, Prime Minister Carney made a request of premiers to come up with projects that would actually unite this country, help this country, especially in a time when we're dealing with a very erratic neighbor to the south. And Northerners thought, you know what, if there is ever a time to make 11 and 17 a priority, it was then. Because when 11 and 17 are closed, if you can't go south, the country, east-west, there is no connection. And it happens so many times. What we were, as Northerners, incredibly disappointed was when the Premier of this province named the tunnel under the 401 as his priority project. Now, I have nothing against the people in Toronto, and I drive on the 401 too. It's very busy. But where I come from, in Timiskaming, in the district of Timiskaming, you are 10 times as likely to die on a highway in my district as on the 401. Your probability of being in a fatal collision. So it is not the same. And we are not the only ones asking for this. Over the years, many municipalities, the Northern Ontario Municipal Association, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, and many other groups. We just met with the executive of the Ontario Good Roads Association, who also named 11 and 17 one of their greatest issues. But it seems yesterday, the Minister of Transportation and the Minister of Northern Economic Development Growth seem to have had a change of heart, because they wrote to the federal government. And today the Premier supported that. Great. And I am sure that all the mayors across Northern Ontario are going to support that very vehemently. Great. But at this point, a letter, after nothing in the budget to identify the crisis, nothing. At this point, a letter is cold comfort for people who feel they have to risk their lives every day on 11 and 17. Because one thing this motion doesn't do, it doesn't exempt the province from their provincial responsibility. And they have been extremely lacking. I don't know how else to describe it. In their provincial responsibility to protect the people of that highway, to protect the people who live there, and actually to protect the people who drive across the country on that highway. I'm sure we are going to hear from the government, and it's their job to put the best face forward. That no government has ever spent more, huge infrastructure spending. Our counter is I challenge you to find people in Northern Ontario who say that the highway is safer than 8 years ago. Because it isn't. Or that the highway is closed less now than 8 years ago. Because it's closed much more. I'll give you a personal example. I drive down here every week. I have never. This week, the highway was supposed to be open. There was an accident around 10 o'clock in the morning, but 511 said one lane was open. 511 wasn't accurate. So I sat there for an hour and turned around, went home, waited for 2 hours till I saw cars coming, and then went south. 511 still said one lane was open. The week before I came down on Sunday, I had to go over Quebec because Highway 11 was closed. We have people in our ridings who are considering moving away from Northern Ontario because if you don't live if you have to drive on a provincial highway to get groceries, there's a good chance you might not make it back that day. This happens more and more and more. So, whatever you're doing now, honestly, isn't working. It isn't. Everyone who lives in the north knows it. Knows it. My colleagues and I did a tour across Northern Ontario, drove to Manitoba and back, and I was not shocked by what I heard, but some of the responses that people are actually getting more life insurance because of the risk of the highway, because they don't want to leave their kids with nothing. Like, that just can't be. And it's happening. And not only is it costing lives, as an example speaker, last Thursday, I stood in this house for a member statement to talk about the debate tonight. And I announced at the highway that there was an accident. And I expressed hope that no one was hurt. 3 people died in that accident. Another 3 people. Now, to the government, they're going to say again, we've never spent more. And the Premier with his change of heart with his letter, but the Auditor General tells a different story. In 2022, the government took $158 million out of northern roads and redirected it to the south. And we know that not just anecdotally, because we have been promised so many improvements and they just don't materialize. Does the province repave highways when they really need it? Yes. But do they actually do the redesigns that are needed to accommodate the increased traffic? No. They talk about it. So in the last election, the Premier came to my riding, and as an election promise, he was going to extend the 2+1 from North Bay to Cochrane. The next day, we drove to where the 2+1 was supposed to be and put out a video saying, well, perhaps someone should have told the Premier it's hard to extend something you haven't started. Now, to the government's credit, they started cutting trees, and they put up a huge sign. But that is not saving people's lives. And it's not the 2,000 trucks a day or the $125 million a day that goes through that highway. It's not meeting the challenge for that. Highway 11, from North Bay to Cochrane, from January to September of last year, cumulatively was closed for 32 days. And actually, having done the northern tour, man, that's one of the better parts of that highway. Because you go from Cochrane and go west. There's places this winter where if a truck broke down, they had no choice but to be in the live lane. No choice. There's other things that the government, provincial government, is responsible for. So, highway maintenance. No one can deny that highway maintenance is not the same as it was before. And it's not the people on the plows, it's not the people, because, Speaker, people on the plows die on 11 and 17 too. It's not the people on the plows. That's a provincial responsibility. Licensing of drivers, a provincial responsibility. I have heard that we have the strongest driver training program in the country, and we have the strongest licensing program in the country, and yet there are drivers on Highway 11, commercial vehicle drivers, who are not in control of their vehicles, and everyone in Northern Ontario knows it. Many of us have been pushed off the road by drivers with no respect and no knowledge of how to drive in Northern Ontario. Again, that's a provincial responsibility. I hope that the government supports this motion, and I hope that they're serious about actually working with the federal government. But we are not going to rest until the government is actually serious about doing the things that they're responsible for, because they're not doing them now. Thank you, Speaker.
Further debate? I recognize the member from Scarborough-Guildwood.
Speaker, I rise today to address motion 63. Speaker, let's look at the expansion and modernization of highways 11 and 17, a project of national significance in this motion. Speaker, let's take a look at ROMA. The Rural Ontario Municipal Association has been around for over 125 years. A strong support for Northern Ontario. They strongly support calls for the provincial government to accelerate the expansion and modernization of highways 11 and 17 in Northern Ontario. ROMA also advocates for these upgrades to improve safety, boost economic growth, and increase supply chain reliability along these critical national trade corridors. Speaker, ROMA is also supporting traditional four-lane twinning and implementation of the 2+1 highway model, which is 2 lanes in one direction, one in the other, separated by a median to improve safety at a lower cost and reduce environmental impact. They also support the urgent need to address high collision rates on 2-lane stretches, which often delay the transport of over 200 million in goods on a daily basis. Speaker, in 2024, I tabled my second bill in this House, Bill 184, supporting mobility, affordable and reliable transportation in Ontario Act. The third section of that SMART bill supports highways 11 and 17 with 4 amendments. to support road maintenance to ensure that highways 11 and 17, including portions of those highways that only have 2 lanes, are maintained in accordance with this section, to support snow removal standard to the entire pavement of the highway shall be bare of snow within 4 hours after the end of a snowfall. And without me explaining why the snowfall affecting the highways, like when we have heavy snow, nothing goes out and in of the highway 11 and 17. I don't even know how emergency vehicles can get through there to take someone to a hospital, or if the residents are going for groceries, what will happen to them going and coming? And so, to this government and its members, these might look like small potatoes issues, but to the people in the Northern Ontario, this is life or death. I also have one amendment for ice clearing standard. If ice forms on the pavement of the highway, the standard is to clear the ice within 3 hours after becoming aware of the fact. I also talk about pothole repair standard. If a pothole on a pavement of the highway has a surface area exceeding 600 square centimeters and a depth exceeding 8 centimeters, the standard is to repair the pothole within 4 days after becoming aware of that fact. Because let me tell you, it might take weeks for that pothole to be fixed. But nothing here, nothing new. The government always vote our bills down, just like they does to my colleagues across from me. And Speaker, in 2025, I tried again, because I feel the pain of the colleagues in the North beside me, get up in their question period, in their statement periods, bringing bills, pounding in this government to take a good look and consideration of the lives that are being lost on Highway 11 and 17. But again, it doesn't matter. And again, my second bill with the configuration of a 2+1 on Highway 11 and 17, it didn't go anywhere. It's voted down again, nothing new. I traveled up north and I traveled on Highway 11 and 17 myself because I wanted to feel what my colleagues across me are speaking about. Speaker, within 7 minutes, I passed 12 trucks that were going above the speed limit. I felt and understood why locals have been pleading for action, including my northern colleagues across from me. My heart was racing because I want to tell you this. One slip to the left, I would not be in this house. And so they risk their lives every day on those highways. God bless their heart. It is unacceptable for Northerners to face such dangerous conditions every single day, while this government refuses to respond with urgency. Human lives are priceless, and yet the safety of Northerners continue to be neglected. Speaker, I spoke to Northern Ontarians, and they are tired. They need change. And residents are taking matters into their own hands. Recently, a Sudbury man created a Northern Road Watch, a website that tracks real-time highway incidents across Northern Ontario. The locals are stepping up because this government is doing nothing to save lives on Highway 11 and 17. Speaker, nothing has changed on these highways since I tabled my bill in 2024. In fact, things have gotten worse. In 2025, we've seen death toll of over 42 on these highways and counting. It doesn't stop there. And maybe these are the ones we know of. Speaker, just before 12:30 a.m. on December 21st, on a dark stretch of Highway 11, a tractor-trailer collided with a pickup truck carrying a family. Doesn't this mean anything to the government? One man survived. His wife, Nicole, let's say her name. His wife, Nicole, 41, and their 2 children, 15 and 12. They haven't even started living. They were pronounced dead at the scene. A family went out on that highway and never came back home. In February of this year, 3 people died following a collision between a commercial motor vehicle and a passenger vehicle on Highway 11 west of Hearst. On March 7th, a multi-vehicle disaster near Smooth Rock Falls, which is on Highway 11, involving 4 track trailers and a passenger vehicle, claimed the life of a Northern Ontario resident. By April 1st of this year, the public record shows at least 8 fatalities on the northern corridor of Highway 11 and 17. And you know just what happened last week. I'm not going to repeat that because, the member that brought this motion through, he talked about it. Speaker, these are not just numbers. These are the lives of people with families. These are empty chairs at the dining room table. How can this government not care? But I get it. This government does not care because it's helping in the downtown core. If you're not in downtown Toronto, it's just too bad for you. There's a resident by the name of Muriel Edmond. And, she sent a letter into this government and to the minister. And she said the tragedy has also renewed calls for improved road safety in Northern Ontario. Muriel Edmond, a member of the Cochrane Park Pals, wrote 2 open letters to Premier Doug Ford and provincial leaders, highlighting the risk of northern highways and the toll on residents and first responders. Muriel Edmond's first letter to the government: Northern Ontario is not asking for special treatment. They're asking to be seen and to be kept safe. She said, I write this not only as a resident of Northern Ontario, but as someone who is grieving. In recent weeks, close family friends lost their lives on northern roads. There were people deeply woven into the fabric of the community: parents, children, neighbors, friends. Their absence is felt every day, and their loss has forced us to confront a truth too often ignored. When Northern Ontario is overlooked, the consequences are tragic and permanent. Ontario highways are lifelines. We travel long distances for work, healthcare, education, and connection. She continues to say, unlike much of the province, there are often no alternative routes, no public transportation options, and no choice but to drive. This reality is compounded by long, harsh northern winters, where snow, ice, blowing winds, whiteouts, and extreme cold turn already vulnerable roads into dangerous corridors for months at a time. Yet many northern routes remain narrow, under-maintained, and outdated. Despite carrying heavy commercial traffic and essential services, she continued to say winter maintenance delays, limited visibility, long emergency responses times, and growing concerns around driver qualification and experience in northern roads all increase the risk. In these conditions, a single mistake or mechanical failure can quickly become fatal. She also took her time and wrote a second letter, focused on the challenges faced by emergency responders, Northern Ontario's first responders, paramedics, firefighters, OPP officers, tow operators, and emergency medical staff are being asked to witness far too much carnage on our highways. They are professionals trained to help in moments of crisis, but they should never be expected to repeatedly confront scenes of devastation that are preventable. Time and again, they respond to fatal collisions on narrow, under-maintained northern highways. She said this is not normal and it should not be accepted at the cost of living or working in Ontario. I want to say her name, Marielle Edmond. Your name is now in this House, and I support my colleague across the floor.
Thank you. Further debate? I recognize the member from Brampton East.
Thank you very much, Speaker. It's great to speak on Highways 11 and 17. Our government has been working to support Highways 11 and 17 and our northern members since we've come into government. It's always been a priority for us, and we've seen that with the amount of work that our members have been doing, traveling to and from, back and forth from the region, Speaker. I've visited the area myself multiple times, especially the work that we've done on the new inspection stations, the new transit enforcement officers that are there, the increases in blitzes, and us making sure that road safety is taken as a top priority, Speaker. Road safety is not a partisan issue. It's not an issue that we're not going to disagree here and across the aisle. It's for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. We as a government want to make sure you're safe when you're traveling through our province's road network. And road safety just doesn't sit with one particular government, Speaker. It's about cross-collaboration between all levels of government and making sure we work together to ensure that the people of our great province and our great country are supported. And that's why, Speaker, our Minister of Transportation, as well as our Minister of Northern Economic Development, penned that letter to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Transportation of Canada, Speaker, to work together to ensure that this highway gets considered as a highway of national significance, and as well as we work together to make sure that we remove and eliminate the duplicative review process that could delay construction and slow progress on this nationally significant corridor, Speaker. We're ready to work with our federal partners. We're ready to work with members from across the island, and we always have been, because this highway has always been a priority for our government, for our members, regardless of whichever riding that they want, the riding that they represent, Speaker. And when we take a look at some of the work that has been done to date, more than 50% of the corridor has been widened to 4 lanes, Speaker, and that's why we're making critical investments in our highway network, including the widening from Thunder Bay to Nipigon. And, Speaker, as we improve this road safety across the north, we're also working to make sure that we improve our bare pavement standards. We have some of the best bare pavement standards in North America when it comes to highway winter maintenance, Speaker. And those are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight here today. Our government has put forward a Northern Highways program, an investment of $650 million to ensure that we continue to invest in the north and continue to invest in northern highways, whether that be through 2+1, whether that be through collaboration across the aisle, Speaker. And that's why we're going to support the motion put forward by the member from Timothy Cochrane, Speaker, and continue to work together to ensure that we protect the north, to ensure that the north is valued, and we have the best road network here in the province, Speaker. And I'm going to share the rest of my time with the Minister from Minister of Northern Development and Northern Economic Development. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the Minister of Northern Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, I've been driving these roads since 1959, since I was a 6-year-old boy, traveling from Timmins down to North Bay, all the way through past Fort Erie, and QEW at that particular time still had travel circles. I've traveled across these highways numerous times for personal reasons and on business, and even bringing my wife and family from Vancouver back over to Timmins. And now, more than everything before, our highways are busier than ever before. Because of our policies, the economy is booming in Northern Ontario. And what are we doing about that? We're building the 4-lane highway systems in the Kenora area. We're building the 4-lane highway systems in the Nipigon area. We're widening the highways north of North Bay. We're building the rest stops. And we're doing this with the full support from Phenom and NOMA. These highways are truly the threads that unite the social fabric of Northern Ontario. But we're doing a lot, we need to do more, and we're asking, and we need the help of the federal government. And that's why the Ministry of Transportation and I wrote the federal government and requested that they contribute to the work Ontario is doing and invest in the continued 4-lane expansion of these highways as a project of national significance. That's what we stand for. Over to Mr. Rickford.
Further debate? Right. I recognize the member from Mississauga-James Bay.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Puis, je veux remercier mon collègue d'avoir amené la motion. Mais je veux aussi reconnaître que là, le gouvernement a annoncé qu'ils vont supporter la motion, qui est une bonne chose. Il faut reconnaître les bonnes choses quand ça arrive. Mais j'ai entendu le ministre dire que, tu sais, on travaille étroitement puis qu'on fait des bonnes choses puis on travaille tous étroitement ensemble. Mais j'aimerais rappeler que j'ai présenté Chad's Law. Puis pourtant, Chad's Law, c'est un projet de loi que je pensais que c'était un no-brainer pour moi. Que c'est deux legs solides, que tout le monde, quand ils ont le licence, pense que c'est la loi. Mais la réalité des choses, c'est une suggestion en Ontario. À grandeur de l'Amérique du Nord, il y a la province de l'Ontario et je pense 4 États que c'est pas la loi. Mais à grandeur, le reste, c'est à grandeur du Canada puis la grandeur de l'Amérique du Nord, c'est la loi. Qu'est-ce que le gouvernement a fait? On va être contre. On dit qu'on travaille ensemble. J'ai amené un autre projet de loi, 49. 49 disait de ramener le déneigement à la province. On disait au moins que les pesées ou des stations d'inspection soient ouvertes au moins 12 heures, minimum 12 heures. On sait qu'ils ne sont pas ouverts minimum 12 heures, mais d'ouvert au moins minimum. On voulait mettre un minimum pour essayer de le développer. Puis après ça, l'autre, c'était que le déneigement, puis de ramener aussi le licenciement des camionneurs. Qu'est-ce que le gouvernement a fait? Je vous laisse deviner, ils ont voté contre. Mais on travaille ensemble. Fait que je suis content de voir qu'ils vont supporter notre motion. Je suis le premier à le reconnaître. Mais je ne m'arrête pas là. On avait emmené que la 11 et 17 devienne une classe 1. C'est quoi une classe 1? C'est un déneigement après 8 heures. Parce qu'après tout, on est une transcanadienne, ça affecte notre économie, non seulement de la province, mais du Canada, mais aussi régionale. Puis que les gens doivent se présenter au travail, ils doivent se rendre à leur travail, aller à des appointements médicaux, aller, tu sais, ou si tu as besoin d'aller à des tournois de hockey. Écoute, la liste est longue. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont fait? Ils ont voté contre. Mais je dois reconnaître qu'ils ont fait d'autres choses, par exemple. Ils ont amélioré. Avant, c'était 16 heures, ils l'ont descendu à 12 heures. Fait que la pression qu'on a faite, mais encore, c'est mieux que rien. Puis l'autre, j'avais emmené, c'est les simulateurs pour les camionneurs. Pourquoi c'est important? C'est parce qu'il y a tellement de camionneurs qui n'ont pas l'expérience. C'était un autre projet de loi qu'on avait emmené. Puis qu'est-ce qu'ils ont décidé de faire? C'est pour les exposer à la neige, le black ice, et toutes les qu'on vit pour les routes hivernales. Puis qu'est-ce qu'on voit au jour le jour? Ils ont décidé de voter contre. Fait que, pour finir, en conclusion, je veux remercier le gouvernement de supporter la motion à mon collègue. Parce que c'est grand temps qu'on peut dire qu'on travaille ensemble. Il est grand temps que quand ça vient à la sécurité des gens du Nord ou la sécurité routière, il n'y a pas de couleur, il n'y a pas de partisanerie. Fait que je remercie mes collègues, puis j'ai encore qu'on supporte la motion. Merci.
Further debate? I recognize the Minister for Indigenous Affairs and Northern Reconciliation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to endeavor to be brief as I share my time with another colleague. But first, I should say to the member from Scarborough-Guildwood, great person, done a great job in here, but I have very little tolerance for the Provincial Liberal Party chiming in on a debate about highway safety on Highways 11 and 17. Let me tell a brief story, okay? I was the federal member of Parliament for 7 years. Prime Minister Harper and Premier McGuinty at the time had a great idea, right? Let's look at this entire corridor. Let's twin and 2+1 where it's possible. In fact, for the member from Sudbury, I'll acknowledge that Highway 69 should be read into this debate around highway safety. It's fair. But they failed in their negotiations with First Nations. And so they took that money and they moved it out to another part of Northern Ontario, right? So we got a political interest in this Thunder Bay Superior North riding. Oh, they happen to have a federal Liberal there. So guess what? $30 million showed up from the federal government. And I went out to announce that portion and I said to the federal minister, what are you doing here? We're paying 100% for the twinning from the Manitoba border to Kenora. Ah, I see. We're approaching highway safety on the basis of who holds those ridings. The same situation was for Highway 69. These are matters of fact. So I want to welcome the NDP, right, to a discussion about the scope of responsibility for different levels of government. This is a ginormous undertaking. It will take a generation or more to complete the kind of highway safety that will protect people across this province, particularly in Northern Ontario. Mr. Speaker, I run the Manitoba border to Ignace, a full 430 kilometers like city folk go to the No Frills grocery store or wherever it is they go. So I know a thing or two about it as well. And I'm pleased that in the list of East-West trade, national resilience, supply chain reliability, and mining projects, topics the NDP have consistently voted against, Mr. Speaker, that we are actually bringing this discussion to a careful and deliberate place. And that is a discussion that Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, and the Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford, had some time ago, right? Not just recently, asking the federal government to make it a project of national importance and to fund it. We can no longer afford to approach highway safety by ad hocery or the strategic interests of where a riding is held. This is how segments of the highway across Northern Ontario has been built. It needs to stop, Mr. Speaker. So, from here on forward, I think it's an important time for the NDP to finally arrive at a place where all levels of government, First Nations, the provincial government, municipalities, provincial government, and the federal government get serious about this. For our part, you heard my members speak moments ago about the investments that we're making. Other members will chat about that who have an interest in the Highway 11 and 17. But I just want to welcome the NDP to a multi-level government discussion about a multi-generational approach to ensuring that our highways are twinned. We had one job. Eisenhower got it in the United States, Mr. Speaker. They knew twinned highways, east and west and north-south, would be efficient for trade and great for safety. We need to focus on the same thing. It's 2026, Mr. Speaker. Our government's tracking to do that. We welcome the NDP to the conversation about the federal government's responsibility to this. Thank you.
Further debate? I recognize the member from Nickel Belt.
Really honored to, I want to honor my colleagues, the MPP from Timiskaming and Cochrane, Mushkogumok, James Bay, and Kiiwetinoong, who did Highway 17 and Highway 11 they left from Toronto. I met them in North Bay. They drove all the way to the Manitoba border, and then they come back. Why did they do this? Because we want everybody to know how dangerous those roads are. How many people have died? How many people have been hurt? How many people have been involved in accidents on those roads? A road that is named the Trans-Canada Highway. That's right. It is a perfect project for a nation-building project. We all know that we live in difficult times right now with our neighbors to the south. We have to rely on movement of goods and people across our country way before. Lots of trucks used to go through the States. They come through Northern Ontario now. That means we have even more trucks. Highway 17 goes through my riding. The people of Winnipeg, Coniston, Naughton, Lively, Whitefish, Beaver Lake, Nairn Centre, we have no choice but to travel on Highway 17, and we have no choice but to look at hundreds of trucks coming at you and hundreds of trucks following you. It doesn't matter if you are very careful. It is scary. It is scary, and the statistics are there. There's an accident in Cochrane again today that I just saw online. 10 people have already died. Speaker, you can go into any large hospital in Northern Ontario, whether you go to Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie or North Bay or Thunder Bay. I guarantee you that there are people that are in those hospitals because they were involved into a traffic accidents on Highway 17 or Highway 11. This has to change. We deserve to feel safe. I'm tired of being scared every time I drive, and so is everybody else. The government can change this. They can pass this motion. They can start to put in place steps that the government of Ontario can do to make us safer. Thank you, Speaker.
Further debate. I recognize the member from Renfrew, Pembroke Nixon.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I'm proud to support this motion, and I want to bring this conversation to my part of the province. Because if there's one issue that has been at the forefront in my community, it's always been Highway 17. In Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, Highway 17 is not an abstraction on a map. It is the corridor, it is the artery, it is the lifeline of our communities. People rely on it every day to get to work, to school, to medical appointments, and home safely at the end of the day. And for many families, this is the transportation system where there are long stretches with no alternative route if something goes wrong. I think about those who depend on this road locally: first responders, school buses, truck drivers, local businesses and families just trying to get through their week. When traffic backs up or conditions deteriorate, our communities feel it immediately because there is nowhere else to turn. And our communities are not asking for anything unreasonable. They want safer highways, better passing opportunities, and infrastructure that matches the traffic using it every day. And you know, Speaker, I'll acknowledge that our government is taking action. Just locally, on February 27th, 2026, we advanced the next stages of twinning of Highway 17, twinning the 22.5-kilometre stretch from Armpire to just outside of Renfrew, opening the request for proposals for the design of this stretch, and moving into a delivery model designed to speed up construction. We're widening key sections, advancing future expansion, and launching the 2+1 highway pilot in Northern Ontario, a model proven to improve safety. And that progress matters, but this corridor must keep moving forward. Highway 17 is the Trans-Canada Highway. It connects rural and northern communities to each other and to the rest of Canada. It supports forestry, mining, trucking, tourism, and the industries that keep people working. We need a federal partner at the table to recognize that this highway is of national significance. That designation would reflect what we already know, that this corridor matters not just to Eastern and Northern Ontario, but to all of Canada, and it deserves support that matches its importance. For those reasons, Speaker, I am proud to support this motion, and I encourage all members of this House to do the same. Thank you.
Further debate. I recognize the member from Thunder Bay Superior North.
Thank you very much. And I'd like first to thank the member from Timiskaming Cochrane for bringing this motion forward. And I'd like to thank the government for agreeing to support it. Because frankly, 11 and 17 can't possibly carry increased industrial activity without significant improvements. Contractors at Greenstone Gold, every time there's a shift change, which is every 2 weeks, they're terrified about their workers going home and coming back again, that they might not make it. 3 lives were lost. Last week it was a head-on collision in another 2-lane stretch. There's no margin of error. Did the driver fall asleep? Was there black ice on the road? We don't know, but 3 people died. And I want to talk about road maintenance because 8 years apart, we lost people because there was black ice on the road, which means the road wasn't sanded in time. 2 people died on those, a young 18-year-old and then a young woman. Incredibly tragic. Those maintenance things need to be changed. Now, I want to focus primarily on training, testing, and licensing of drivers and their working conditions. First, you need to visit, everyone here needs to go visit the site Justice for Truck Drivers and to go check out the Workers' Action Centre and the leaflet entitled Stop Wage Theft. And then you will maybe understand some of the conditions that these drivers are facing. Now, you would think we have a shortage of drivers. Wages would be good. However, the opposite is the case. Wages have been driven down massively so that it's barely possible to make a living. Drivers are not paid for any time that the truck is not actually moving. Now, you add to that the massive increase in numbers of commercial trucks, where you'll have a caravan of 12 trucks at least, a break, and then another 12 trucks. So the whole conditions, and then the fact that there's no room for a margin of error, it encourages desperate, unsafe driving behaviors. In addition, if you add to that the fact that the drivers are experiencing wage theft, and yet the Labour Relations Board does nothing to pursue this theft, and there's no enforcement of the Labour Code either at the provincial or federal levels, well then, we get what we get, don't we? We know that more inspectors are being hired. That's great. I have to say that the Shunia inspection station, which is lovely to look at, it is a laughingstock in our region because it is so seldom staffed. That is gradually changing. We think that's very good. But frankly, when massive numbers of public servants have been laid off, and we know that's been going on for a long time, there's nobody available to mind the shop. And that's exactly what's happening. So I'm going to take a little of your time. This is from the Ontario Trucking Association. Eliminate the satisfactory unaudited safety ratings by increasing audit capabilities. So in other words, actually all the auditing is done online. It's self-reporting, it's self-regulated. But the Ontario Trucking Association is saying that 80 to 90% of those fleets have never been inspected. We know the trucks are unsafe. We know that the drivers are not being prepared. It's got to change. The province is responsible for all of this, and the province can fix this. They've known for a long time it needs to be fixed. Thank you very much.
Further debate? I recognize the member from Sudbury.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And I want to thank the NDP House Leader for bringing forward this motion for recognizing 1117 as a project of major importance. It may not have been picked up on the mics, and I don't think it recorded a answer, but while he was speaking in his lead, an ambulance went by. We heard the sirens in here. And I want to tell you that us in the north, when you hear that a highway is closed in Northern Ontario, the first thing you do is think about where your family is. Who's traveling, who's visiting, where's grandma? The second thing I do in Sudbury is I think about when the cage is coming to surface and when people in the mines are coming back home. And it's selfless, but you think of the people that you know first, and then you feel guilty because you know it's somebody else. That's our reality. My colleague from Kenora Rain and River, he talked about the distance that he travels on a regular basis. In Sudbury, the riding, because of the population, is all municipal roads. But we visit family, we go back and forth. But in Northern Ontario, it's how you get groceries, it's how you bring your kids to school, it's how you get to work. You are constantly driving on those roads that are not safe. Roads that the government, our House Leader has said, Highway 17 being closed 886 times in 1 year, and Highway 11 being closed 363 times. This is the way to drive things forward. It's the right thing to do for the safety of the people. It's the right thing to do for the economic impact. If we want to open mines in the north, and we make it so dangerous that people can be killed, or snowed in, or can't get back home to their families, we're going to lose valuable workers, tradespeople who can work anywhere in Canada. Miners who can work anywhere in the world are going to choose another place to go. We need to take care of these roads because it's the right thing to do, because of the social reasons, the economic reasons, and because it's embarrassing that Ontario is the only part of the Trans-Canada Highway that is two-laned. I want to thank the government for supporting the Democrat House Leader motion for significant national importance for the highway, and thank you for the time and allowing me to speak to it.
The member has 2 minutes to reply.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank all the members who spoke and for the support. It's not often that we all agree on something, and that we all agree that 1117 should be an issue of not only national significance, but I think provincial significance. But one thing I am worried about is that we don't hear every time that, well, the feds didn't want to help, so basically that the government's going to abdicate their responsibility to the federal government. We hear this all the time. So we are not going to stop. We are going to hold whatever government to account to make sure that the people of Northern Ontario have a right to safe roads. The people who come through from Southern Ontario, from across the country, also have the right to feel safe. When someone is coming against the transport and the transport comes into their lane and they have to veer off, that shouldn't happen. And it happens all the time. We caught it in video several times. Licensing is a provincial responsibility. It's a provincial responsibility. Highway maintenance, provincial responsibility. And when we were in Thunder Bay, and his name is Jim, and Jim was here, each time that they talk about doing something in the highway, oh, well, the twinning is coming, twinning is coming. And that has been for years, 30 years, 40 years that has promised and not happened. We don't want this to be an excuse. We all have to work together, but we are going to continue to hold the government to account. Thank you very much.
The time provided for private members' public business has expired. Mr. Vantoff has moved private members' notice of motion number 63. Is it the pleasure of this House that the motion carry? Carried. In my opinion, the ayes have it. It's carried. I declare the motion carried.